Usually when we try to understand a massively influential, um, globally recognized figure,
Right, especially highly controversial ones.
exactly, we tend to look straight at the grand public stage. We look at the sweeping speeches, the massive institutions they built, the sprawling crowds.
Yeah, it's like standing in front of a giant monument and just, reading the bronze plaque.
Right. But today, for you listening, we are taking a totally different approach. We are looking for the story behind that monument.
We are definitely stepping away from the podium and basically walking straight into the living room.
Yes, because today's deep dive is entirely sourced from excerpts of a single text. It's called The Heart of a True Mother, from the autobiography of Reverend Myung Moon.
And it is a fascinating read.
It really is. And our mission today is unique. We're going to look at a highly polarizing global figure, but entirely through the intimate, deeply private lens of his marriage.
And his profound, almost overwhelming reverence for his wife.
Right. But before we get into it, we need to set the parameters for you.
Absolutely. The source material we have today touches on deeply held, very specific theological views. It also openly acknowledges the intense public controversies surrounding this family.
Yeah, the narrative actually explicitly uses the term cult leader when describing how the public viewed Reverend Moon.
Right. So we want to be clear. Our goal in this deep dive is not to endorse, validate, or debate the theology itself.
Not at all.
We are just here to impartially explore the fascinating human psychology, the intense marital dynamics, and the sweeping philosophical worldview that drove them.
Exactly. We're just here to read the blueprints of a very complex relationship.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the public empire they built, we really have to start with the extreme foundational rules that govern their private lives.
And that starts with a pact.
Right, a very specific pact.
A no-fight pact, to be exact.
Yeah.
Right after they were married, the couple made an ironclad vow.
Which is easier said than done.
Oh, for sure. They agreed that no matter how angry or upset either of them got, they would never allow anyone to think they were fighting.
And more importantly, they would never let their children see even a hint of conflict.
And just to put this into perspective for you, they had 14 children.
14.
Yeah, 14. I mean, the idea of never showing frustration in a house with 14 kids is just mind-boggling.
It sounds impossible, but their reasoning here is actually really beautiful, even if it sets an impossibly high bar.
Right.
They operated on this belief that, quote, children are God with very small hearts.
Wow.
Yeah. So the absolute rule of the house was that if a child calls out for their mother, she must absolutely always answer with a smile.
Always with a smile. It's a radical reframing of parenthood, really.
Right.
You aren't just raising kids, you are essentially hosting the divine in your living room.
Exactly. But the physical toll this took on her was staggering. Over 40 years of raising these 14 children, she was often completely alone.
Because he's traveling overseas, right?
Right, traveling or doing mission work. And they faced periods of severe financial strain.
Yet, reading the text, things actually got so bad financially that their own followers were worried she wasn't getting enough basic nutrition to survive.
And the sleep deprivation. He only slept 2 to 3 hours a night.
Which is wild on its own.
Right, and so she dutifully matched that. She slept only 2 or 3 hours a night herself for their entire life together.
And through all of this, the 14 kids, the poverty, the total exhaustion, she never complained. Not once.
What's fascinating here is how this constructs a baseline of total, absolute self-denial.
Yeah.
It elevates the wife to an almost saint-like figure in the text. And why that matters to you as the listener is because this isn't just a story about a long-suffering spouse.
Right, it's bigger than that.
Much bigger. This extreme detachment from personal comfort becomes the exact psychological fuel that powers the global movements they eventually build.
And that detachment, it extended entirely to physical, material possessions, too.
Oh, absolutely.
There are these incredible anecdotes of radical generosity. Like,
Yeah.
if she saw someone who needed clothes, she just bought them clothes.
If they were hungry, she bought them a meal.
She even gave away her own wedding ring to someone in need.
Which is huge.
Yeah, people would give them presents, and she would hand them off to strangers without even opening the boxes.
There is one particular story that really highlights this dynamic. They were touring the Netherlands, and they visited a diamond processing factory.
Oh.
He knew how much his wife had sacrificed over the decades, and he wanted to express his deep gratitude.
Which is sweet.
Right. He didn't have much money, but he bought her a modest diamond ring and presented it to her.
Wow. Okay, so a rare moment of normal material appreciation?
Except she gave it away immediately.
Wait, what? She gave away her husband's thank you diamond?
Yeah, right away. When he noticed it was missing from her finger, he asked where it went.
I mean, you would.
And she just looked at him and said, "You know, by now I can't keep something like that when someone has a greater need."
Okay, I have to push back on this a little. Because for most of us, if your partner saves up to buy you a diamond ring to thank you for your life's sacrifices,
Giving it away would cause a massive fight.
a huge fight, it makes you wonder, at what point does boundless radical love transition into just a complete detachment from regular human sentimentality?
It's a great question. In a standard psychological framework, giving away a deeply sentimental gift might look like a rejection of the giver.
Right.
But in their theological framework, material goods hold zero intrinsic value compared to the spiritual act of giving.
So the ring isn't a symbol of their marriage.
Exactly. The sacrifice of the ring is the symbol of their shared mission.
It's like extreme minimalism.
No.
But instead of being driven by an aesthetic trend or,
Yeah.
a desire to declutter your closet,
Right.
it's driven by an uncompromising, totalizing theology.
Exactly. It's one thing to practice extreme self-denial in your own mindset, but it's another entirely when that mentality starts physically leaving the house.
Yeah, like the clothes story.
Yes. He actually catches her quietly pulling out these large wrapping cloths and secretly packing them full of clothes.
That's in their living room.
Right. When he asks what she's doing, she gives this sweet, self-conscious smile and says she's sending them to their foreign missionaries.
Amazing.
She says, this one's for Mongolia, this one's for Africa, and this one's for Paraguay.
But wait, how do you go from packing clothes in a living room to advising the United Nations? Because the scale of what she ends up building is staggering.
That is the crucial pivot point. How does this scale?
Right.
It scales because of the organizational mechanism they were building simultaneously. You have this massive growing base of devoted followers and a highly centralized theology.
So it's not just her doing it alone anymore.
Right. When the leader's wife starts formalizing her domestic charity, that singular focus creates a snowball effect.
Oh, I see.
The devotion of the followers provides the manpower and the global infrastructure to turn those wrapping cloths into international NGOs.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you see that evolution happen so rapidly.
Extremely fast.
We go from those wrapping cloths to the International Relief and Friendship Foundation in 1979.
Doing major service projects in places like Zaire, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast.
Right, handing out food, medicine, and clothing.
Then, in 1994, she creates the Aewon charity in Korea. And this wasn't small scale.
No, not at all.
They managed canteens, serving free food to the poor, supported low-wage earners, helped the handicapped, and even provided direct aid to the North Korean people.
And the crown jewel seems to be the Women's Federation for World Peace, established in 1992.
That was massive.
This wasn't just a club. It expanded to branches in some 80 countries. It even gained general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations as a non-governmental organization.
And this expansion is deeply tied to their philosophical worldview. He explicitly predicts that the coming world of peace will be based entirely on women's maternal character, love, and sociability.
Which is a huge statement.
He predicts that the power of women will literally save the world.
But here's a massive caveat if you were trying to view this through a modern Western lens.
Right.
Their stance on the women's movement is highly specific. It runs directly counter to a lot of modern feminist thought.
Very true.
They actively disagree with women's organizations that stand in opposition to men. They argue that fighting against men just creates an environment of competition and conflict.
Right. The organizations his wife leads do not call for the liberation of women from men or from families.
Instead, it's an ideological counter-movement.
Exactly. They promote women taking the initiative to create, quote, true families filled with love, transcending lines of race, culture, and religion.
So the family is everything.
The family, in their view, is the absolute cornerstone, the root of peace in all areas of life.
It is such a fascinating tension. On one hand, you have this deeply traditional, maternal, family-centric view of a woman's role.
Right.
But on the other hand, the actual reality of her life is incredibly untraditional.
Completely.
She is a globe-trotting international NGO founder addressing the UN. She's not just staying at home. She's utilizing the global infrastructure of a massive organization to promote the microcosm of the traditional family.
It's a paradox of scale. She is leaving her own home to travel the globe, telling the globe that the home is the most important place on Earth.
Exactly. So they are successfully exporting this true family ideal to 80 countries. But that creates a massive vacuum at home.
It really does.
How did this global obsession with the ideal family impact their actual biological family?
The reality in the text is surprisingly candid. During the most intense periods of their public work, their 14 children had to live close to half the year without their parents.
Wow, half the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were cared for by church members in a house that was constantly filled with church members.
I mean, imagine being a kid in that environment.
It had to be tough.
Every meal had guests at the table,
Yeah.
and those guests always received priority over their own children.
Oh.
You are a child, your parents are gone half the year, and when they are home, the strangers in your dining room are treated as more important than you are.
Unsurprisingly, this created an environment where the children grew up with a profound sense of loneliness.
Which makes total sense.
And compounding that internal loneliness was a brutal external reality. They carried a heavy social stigma.
Oh, because of who their parents were.
Right. Wherever they went, they were singled out and labeled as the sons and daughters of the cult leader Myung Moon.
I have to point out the glaring paradox here for you listening. You have this couple traveling the planet, putting immense energy into promoting the ideal of a perfectly loving maternal home life as the cure for world conflict.
Right.
Yet their own children are effectively relegated to second place behind the church and its guests.
It's a stark contrast.
It's somewhat comparable to the children of massive politicians or mega celebrities who always have to share their parents with the public. But here it is weighed down by this immense, inescapable theological burden.
This raises an important question about the psychology of visionary leadership.
How so?
Well, in almost every absolutist or highly driven movement throughout history, the mission inherently demands the sacrifice of the personal.
The mission comes first.
Always. What is crucial to understand is that prioritizing the church guests over their own kids isn't presented as a parental failure in the text.
Oh, interesting.
Within their theological framework, it is presented as the ultimate proof of their dedication to the world. It's a feature, not a bug.
And that environment led to periods of wandering and rebellion among the kids.
It did, but they always returned home. He mentions proudly that 5 of them graduated from Harvard University.
But why focus on Harvard? I mean, if the whole mission is spiritual, why does an Ivy League degree matter so much?
That's the key to understanding how visionary movements sustain themselves. They need secular success to legitimize the spiritual mission.
Oh, okay.
Graduating from Harvard isn't about personal wealth or secular ambition. It's a tool.
It provides credibility.
Undeniable worldly credibility that can be leveraged to expand the kingdom. That's why even with adult, Harvard-educated kids, he remains a strict father, constantly demanding that they do even more to serve heaven and live for humanity.
The pressure never stops.
Never.
It's one thing to demand that kind of relentless, chronic perfection from your kids. It's another to have your entire theological framework tested by a sudden catastrophic tragedy.
Which is exactly what happened in December 1983.
Yes, we move from the chronic, everyday struggles of raising the family to a sudden, devastating loss. The death of their 17-year-old second son, Hung Jin.
They were actually in Gwangju, Korea at a victory over communism rally when they got an international call.
That Hung Jin had been in a horrific traffic accident in New York.
They flew back immediately, finding him unconscious in the hospital.
The visceral details of the accident are incredibly vivid in the book and just heartbreaking.
Really tragic.
Hung Jin was driving with 2 of his best friends when a truck speeding down a hill tried to brake and swerve directly into his lane.
And what he did next is incredible.
Yeah. Hung Jin deliberately cut the steering wheel to the right, ensuring that the driver's his side took the massive impact of the truck.
By doing so, he saved the lives of his 2 friends.
Reverend Moon even mentions going to the site near their home later and seeing the black tire marks veering off to the right, permanently etched into the road.
Hung Jin passed away on January 2nd, just a month after turning 17.
Just awful.
And this is where we get one of the most profound insights into the psychology of their faith. Words cannot describe his wife's sorrow. However, she could not cry.
She didn't cry at all?
No.
Okay.
In fact, she believed it was absolutely imperative that she not shed a single tear.
I have to stop you there because I am genuinely struggling to understand this.
I know, it's difficult to process.
As a parent, weeping for your child isn't a choice. It's a biological reflex. How does the theology become so deeply ingrained that it literally shuts down the human nervous system's response to tragedy?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's because their belief in the eternal spirit isn't abstract. It's absolute.
Okay.
They believe the spirit does not disappear like dust. It ascends.
So crying would, in their theology, shedding tears of earthly grief acts like a spiritual anchor. It would be viewed as holding him back, actively interfering with his spiritual journey into the next realm.
Oh, wow.
So to protect his soul, she suppressed her own agony. Her belief in the eternal reality of the spirit world was quite literally stronger than her physiological instinct to weep for her dead child.
She only lovingly placed her hands on the hearse.
Exactly.
And that absolute belief in the spirit world leads to what happened 50 days later. Before the accident, Hung Jin had been betrothed to a ballet student named Hoon Suk-pak.
Right. And Reverend Moon actually went to her after the death and gave her an out.
Which makes sense.
He told her it wouldn't be fair to her or her parents to live alone, and that it's best to just forget the betrothal ever happened.
But Hoon Suk-pak refused. She did. Her response was unwavering. She said, "I am aware of the existence of the spirit world. Please let me spend my life with Hoon Jin."
So 50 days after his death, they held a spiritual marriage ceremony.
Yes.
And they note that they will never forget the way Hoon Suk smiled brightly as she stood there, holding a portrait photo of Hoon Jin throughout the entire wedding.
It is a stunning display of faith. To them, the physical death of the boy did not cancel the spiritual reality of the marriage. It simply relocated it.
So what does this all mean? We've gone on quite a journey today.
We really have.
We've gone from secret donations of clothing hidden in wrapping cloths to massive global NGOs operating at the UN. We've navigated the intense loneliness and public estrangement of their 14 children.
And we've witnessed the profound stoicism of a spiritual marriage following a tragic death.
We've seen how a highly polarizing public mission was entirely fueled by an intensely disciplined, private theology of self-sacrifice. But I want to bring the massive cosmic scale of this narrative back down to earth for a second, to the quiet, domestic reality of their old age.
It's a nice contrast.
When church members ask the wife for parenting advice, perhaps dealing with their own rebellious kids, her advice is incredibly gentle.
What does she say?
She just says, be patient and wait.
Mm.
The period when children wander is only temporary. No matter what they do, embrace them, love them, and wait for them. Children will always return.
It's a very tender reflection from a woman who endured so much separation from her own children.
Yeah, it really is.
And Reverend Moon's own reflections on their marriage in their later years are equally intimate. He notes that he never once raised his voice to her simply because she never gave him cause to.
He affectionately calls this great saint of world affairs the best barber in the world.
That's a great detail.
She cheerfully cuts his hair, and as he gets older and can't see his feet, she cheerfully cuts his toenail.
It's this incredibly mundane, vulnerable image of aging together.
Right. He realizes that his toenails are his, but he can't see them very well anymore. And it leads to this quiet realization in the text. He says, the older I become, the more precious my wife is to me.
It brings us right back to where we started.
Yeah.
The sweeping grandiosity of global missions and spiritual marriages ultimately resting on the quiet act of cutting an old man's toenails.
It's quite the image.
It leaves us with a profound question regarding the nature of belief itself. I want you to consider this. If you lived your life with absolute, unwavering certainty in an eternal spiritual reality just as this couple did, how would it change the way you handle today's minor inconveniences, your relationship with your partner, or even your deepest, most unimaginable griefs?
It really makes you reconsider what we prioritize. We started today talking about monuments and how we usually just read the public plaque.
Right.
But looking at the mortar, the daily sacrifices, the 2 hours of sleep, the hidden tears, it turns out the private space inside the monument is infinitely more complex than the bronze statue outside. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. Take care.